Total Home Authority member Collette Biedenkopf is in studio. She's the queen of insurance, and I really appreciate, I know a queen and your schedule and everything. I appreciate you allowing me to call an audible. As you know, we had the reverse mortgage show planned and caught up in the air and all that. So let's talk about one of the things that I keep getting calls for, and I have to explain to people, listen, it's not me. I do fixed mortgage rates, but I continue to get phone calls daily about, hey, my payment went up $200, $300. Right? And I'm like, okay, just so you know, it has nothing to do with your mortgage rate.
Right.
Let's look at what some of these other things are. Chances are it may not be your taxes because taxes were done last year. So let's look at your insurance. 99.9% of the time, that's what it is. So what I need you to understand for those folks who are getting these statements in, or they're going, the people who've gotten them already know, but for those who, as their insurance is coming up, right?
As it renews.
Let's kind of, as their renewals are up, let's kind of help them understand what to expect, but more importantly, why this is happening.
The why is a result of the 2020 storms that hit the Gulf Coast. It was an unprecedented year of storms that caused havoc along the Gulf Coast.
So we're not even talking about Ida. This is the ones.
We are talking about Laura, Delta, Zeta. Those are just Louisiana storms. There were other storms.
I used to party with them. The Laura, Delta, Zetas.
You like them?
They were partying, yeah.
And so then we had that freeze that also hit the area in early of 21.
Yeah.
So when the bean counters is all I can basically dumb it down to is calculating the rates that need to be adjusted to replenish, if you will, the insurance reserves to pay claims. And maybe a year ago, you stumped me on this show once. And it was about, I'm paying all this insurance and, they've been collecting my money for 10 years.
That was going to be my question.
And so I said, well, that's a true statement. Everybody feels the same way. But if you look closely at your policy and you see that your house is insured for $200,000, and for the past 5 years you've been owning a house paying $1,500, a year, in these storms, because of the severity of them and the frequency of them, they're paying out your max limits on that property.
So what you're saying is it eats up that reserve pretty quickly, because
they're
even
collecting
if it's 10 years at $1,500, that's $15,000.
And they're paying you $200,000.
That's a lot of $15,000. You're reaching in your neighbors' buckets and stuff like that.
100%.
Okay.
So
all right.
I've been wanting to circle back on that issue ever since you did that to me on the show. But what's happening now is, even if you go back to Katrina, there were a lot of national companies that wrote business in Louisiana. And after Katrina, we had a lot of those folks scatter. They left. So we only had a handful of national companies. Those are AM Best companies, okay, that you hear that rating. So in order to fill that void of having insurance carriers compete for business here, they got regional carriers to come in, and those are rated with a different rating system called Demotech. And those regional carriers have done well in our market since Katrina, because we haven't had a severity of an event like that since 2020.
Gotcha. So they're like, this is awesome.
So
this is great.
we the prices of our insurance on homeowners went down because we had more competition in the market. There were more folks competing for the share. Well, after you sustain consecutive major events, you're depleting their resources, their reserves, their insurance that comes on top of what their reserves are. And one of the carriers that became insolvent after Ida was basically they were, let's just say, very pleased that they were able to purchase this policy that insures the insurance company. It was a very high limit. They felt very confident in all of their financials. And rating wise, they looked good financially wise. They sold a lot of policies in the river parishes, and Ida disseminated that area.
Yeah.
So when they were collecting premiums, like we were talking about, $1,500 to $2,500, and they're insuring properties for $300,000 to $400,000,
And prices are going up, right?
in that they're paying out full limits on those policies. So it depleted every single piece of financial monies they had, and that's when they had to go into the LIGA, into receivership, so that the Guarantee Association that it has a lot of money in it, because over years it hasn't had to be used. All right.
So when you say that, you're talking about insurance for the insurance companies.
They
right? So
they
insure Dwayne, but then somebody's got to insure them in case something like
a
this happens,
catastrophic event,
which is
correct.
what we are upon.
So that company not only depleted all of their own money in reserve, they also depleted their insurance policy they bought for a catastrophic event. Limits paid out on that one too. So that's when a company becomes insolvent, and the claims now have to be paid by the Guarantee Association.
We have Total Home Authority member Collette Biedenkopf, the queen of insurance, is in studio, and she's discussing why you've seen, or if you haven't seen it yet, you're going to, right? You are going to see at your renewal, you're going to get a statement where your payments, you're going to see it going up, right? And it's not, I just want to say ahead of time, because usually I get to, you told me this was a fixed rate. It is a fixed rate. These are your insurance premiums that are going up. So as Collette was mentioning, why? Well, in 2020, we had Laura, Delta, we had Zeta, then we had the freeze beginning of last year, kick in Ida. A lot of these carriers have just, absolutely wiped out their inventory of reserves, all their cash. And she even answered a question I'd asked her a while back. Well, they collected all this money for years. I'm not buying it. Well, if for 10 years you're paying $1,500, that's 15 grand. When you got to make whole home claims of 200 and 300,000, that eats up that money right away. So good stuff there. Now you mentioned receivership, right? Because several companies after Ida have now
shut down.
Yes. So explain for those folks, because I know your phone's ringing all the time. Hey, what happens here? Kind of tell the audience, in that situation, you still have insurance, right? And how they're protected, right?
Well, there's two different things that are going on at the same time.
Okay, tell us about it.
So you have the claims that were filed in Ida, and they need to be resolved. And those three companies that became insolvent, those claims are now going to be paid by the Louisiana Guarantee Association. So it is not like you are just SOL you still are able to recover depreciation that was taken out of your initial claim. You are still able to make supplemental claims. You just are now, instead of going to that carrier that you were insured with, you're now going to LIGA, Louisiana Insurance Guarantee Association.
Okay, there we go. Another acronym for y'all. LIGA, Louisiana Insurance Guarantee Association. All right, bailout.
Okay. It is a bailout.
It's a bailout.
So then, on the other hand, you still have an active policy in force that you paid for that 12 months. And all three of these carriers that became insolvent, another insurance company came in and purchased the policies that were in force right now.
So going forward.
Correct. So you still have coverage on your home. You will get a renewal from a new company, not the same one that went insolvent. You now have a new insurance carrier.
So for listeners, let me kind of break. It's almost like when you refinance or you purchase a home, maybe you do it with somebody, but somebody else wants your business, that they buy that policy. That's what these folks have done.
It's like buying your loan where
Right.
your mortgage company changes.
That's right.
But you
Just
still
like that.
have the same coverage.
Okay.
It's the same policy. It's just now being administered by a new company because the other one is no longer operating.
Okay.
Okay. So there's no fear there with people that had policies with those three companies that went into receivership. It's not a panic because you now have another company that's come in and bought those. So if you have a claim today that has nothing to do with Ida,
The new folks who take.
the new folks are going to take care of that claim for you. Okay, so that's what's going on. I want to talk about rates and how
Yes.
to combat some of this astounding increases in premium.
Yes, because that is what I wanted to, because I know me personally, and when we're looking at this, these premiums are up.
Oh, Lord.
And they're not just up. I mean, we're not talking about, a little hop, skip,
Well, let me say this. Our threshold in the past for marketing that property out to other carriers
Yes.
was an increase of about $300 for the year. All right, because if we moved you to another carrier, they may underwrite you and make you do some little things around your house that was going to cost you $300.
Okay.
So what's the point of moving?
Right.
It's not really
Right.
worth it. Now we're closer 600 and above.
Wow.
So we've had to double that. And I'm sorry to say, but we have to, because we have decades of policyholders, decades, thousands, that we need to look at when they renew. Why is it going up this much? Is there anything we can do to mitigate that increase? And the number one thing that we've been able to accomplish is getting evidence from our policyholders that they got new roofs in the last year or two. We can then go to the same insurance company in most cases, and this is a fun fact, and let them know you did replace the roof and give us a new roof credit, which is going to bring the premium down.
Okay.
Which is a good thing.
That's a win.
I can't get you back where you were last year. Those numbers don't exist in the world any longer.
Never.
They do not exist.
It's like
right
2.5% rates. They're
it's
gone.
gone.
They're gone.
But what we can do is mitigate the increase. And the best way we can do it is by evidence of new roof replacement on your home. And in some instances...
So if somebody's looking for a new quote, and the first question you're asking is, have you updated your roof?
100%.
Okay.
Every single time.
Okay.
And one of the things that I want people to understand, if you went through your own insurance company that paid you for your roof, they said, hey, you need a new roof from Ida. you have already submitted receipts to the claims people showing evidence of that roof replacement, so you get your depreciation monies that were withheld on the first check. You get another check for showing you did replace the item, so the depreciation is owed to you.
Okay.
All right. The claims departments don't communicate with the underwriting departments. So that information doesn't automatically go over to the underwriting side of the company for them to automatically apply a new roof credit to your policy. Unfortunately, I wish they did, but they don't. So that means your agent and you work together to give those same documents to the underwriting department to get the credit.
So listeners, don't assume that you filed a claim, you got your new roof, that they're just going to reduce your premium.
Correct.
Right?
It is not an automatic thing by any stretch of the imagination. So
would you recommend anybody that has had to change their roof with Ida maybe make a phone call to their agent and just go, hey, is this the best possible premium that I could have right now?
Yeah. Like,
have I received all my credits?
Yes. Have you checked to see if they applied the new roof credit to my renewal?
Awesome.
Because that is where the deepest discount may be for you.
Folks, that's good information there. I mean, how many of you and I know I'm not because y'all called me and looked at it for me, but that's good info. Pull out that policy and check it.
Well, it's on your renewal.
Yeah.
And when you have a severe increase.
Okay. That's the first thing.
One of the first things you can do to try to combat that is to make sure that your roof age is correct on your renewal.
All right. So I'm getting ahead of myself. When your renewal comes in is when you want to look at that, and that's when you want to go. Because when you're calling them to go, hey, what the heck's going on here?
Yeah.
You tell them, hey, does this include my credit?
Correct. So what we've been doing in my office is when we see that renewal premium jump up, and we're unfortunately having to put a $600 threshold just on the sheer number of policies we're having to re-review, we will call the client and say, did you get a new roof in Ida? Or did you get a new roof in Zeta? If so, send me photos of your roof, the receipt from the roofing company, and we can do two things. We can submit it to your current insurer and see how it reduces that premium, or we can remarket you with the handful of companies that are writing to see if we can do any better somewhere else. But the number that you had last year in 21, for your policy, those numbers don't exist anymore. So all we can do is mitigate the severity of the increase.
All right. So Collette's in studio. She's talking about these increases that you're going to see or you've seen or as your renewals are coming around, right? And so she's got a couple more things that she wants you to look at as these renewals are coming through. And so you can kind of know what are the items, what are the factors that are affecting these things. So Collette, kind of tell us about that.
So when the insurance companies are examining the renewals, they are also taking into consideration that the cost to replace your home has increased with the cost of construction and labor. And that's contributed to everything. COVID, inflation, the storms, the shortage of supplies. And so it might cost about 7 to 10% at a minimum to replace your home today than it did last year.
Oh, wow.
And that's...
So somebody's got to pay for that, right?
Well, you need to insure it adequately. You have to insure
that's a good way to put it.
Your home at its replacement cost value.
Yeah.
So when you're getting your renewals you are being faced with two different factors that are impacting the premium. The first one is the increase on the coverage amount of your house because it costs more to fix it and replace it than it did before. And then you have a rate that is higher than it was last year because we don't have the competition. We don't have the competition. And there's not enough carriers right here competing to get that rate more affordable. So we used to have 12 carriers that in the greater New Orleans area we could market to and find the best rate for you. Now we're down to 3 to 5. And I say 3 to 5 because every week we're getting a new email saying, hey, we're not going to take any new business in Orleans and Jefferson. So that's one less that we have to pick from to market out to and find better rates than what this renewal is showing. So back to we can't go back to the numbers from last year. So Dwayne, unfortunately, you are going to get calls with people going, why is my house note going up?
Right.
We're trying, my office is, we care about our clients. They are 100% our focus, the clients that we have currently that are getting these increases, and we're trying to mitigate it.
Yeah.
So, but that is where we will be until we have more companies coming into the state to compete.
Well, and I hate to say it, but for us in Louisiana, Mississippi, I don't see it happening anytime soon just because of, number one, inflation, the cost. That's not going away anytime soon. And I am sure there is not a ton of carriers lined up at the Secretary of Insurance saying, hey, dude, we want in.
Right. And last week I went to the Department of Insurance's conference, and I was able to look at what our legislature is doing to try to combat or assist on two fronts. One is we're trying to make it more fair for consumers when they have claims to not experience what they did in Ida, with a hard time communicating with the carriers, a lot of changing of adjusters, a lot of delays. So they're trying to put in some rules and regs that will help the consumer.
But let me ask you this, because what frustrates me on that, it's kind of like when I hear about these other lenders, oh, we're going to try to do this. And you care so much about your clients, you went and rented a place at your own cost to make sure you got your phones handled, to make sure that your clients, so for me, don't you kind of, you get it, because no matter whether they're with us or not, we want them to be able to get their needs handled.
Correct.
But at the same time, it's like, that's a whole nother reason when people go, well, why you versus a bank? And why? Well, because you know what? I'm going to be available. You were available to answer those calls. At your own cost for 2-3 weeks a month, you were in somewhere getting everything taken care of so you could get people's claims handled before it was even done.
We started taking calls at 8 a.m. on Monday morning.
Right.
I can't speak to every insurance company's catastrophe plan,
right,
but I can tell you that they need to improve it.
Yeah.
And that's part of the legislation that we may see. On the flip side, you don't want to make your insurance environment such that you don't attract other carriers to come in to write.
Yeah.
Because then you're going to pay a higher price.
Right.
So there's a balance that needs to be made between protecting the consumer in these times, but also making it palatable for other insurance companies to come in, so we have the competition and get some rates, that are adjusted down a bit.
So do you think from a standpoint when we're looking at Big Red, Big Blue, all those folks, because I've got people that are with those companies too, and my gosh, theirs is through the roof also. So it's not like people could go, well, see, that's why I'm with these bigger companies. It doesn't matter. Everybody's affected.
Well, it doesn't, and some of the national carriers aren't and haven't written wind policies
Right.
in a decade.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's the. You might think you're with Big Red, Big Blue, but you're not
Yeah. Yeah.
when it comes to a hurricane claim.
Yeah, no, I think that is very, very important.